Hi, and welcome to this series of Dave beside a fern. It's not just this fern. I'm joined with Jess over here and Bec
Hello.
Loundar in the middle, a clinical psychologist who is a part of Hillsong Church. And the reason we're here, Jess, why don't you tell them?
We are here because we, as Hillsong kids, want to champion families, and we understand that this situation is a situation we have not found ourselves in before, and the current season probably just requires us to collaborate a little bit and to put our best foot forward when it comes to our kids. So that's why we've invited Bec into this space to discuss how we can help our kids.
Absolutely. There's a lot of information floating out there.
Yep.
All of my social media and emails are filled with information about what you should do and what you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's really good to hear a perspective for very specific things that families have to deal with, for situations that you find yourself in, from kids who are coping with this all the way through the kids who are really, really distressed and not coping.
And I guess for my household, like my daughter, very positive, happy as Larry. My son, we thought he was happy as Larry, but then Grandma called and said, "Hey, remember your son's a little bit sensitive, so maybe ask him the second question." And we asked him the second question, and that's when he, let us know that he was a bit concerned about some things. And so I thought, wow, how do we help our kids? Like, how do we start this conversation in a good way? I don't know, Bec, could you speak into that?
Oh, for sure. I think it's acknowledging, first of all, that both ourselves or our children could be finding this quite uncertain times, but there's ways in which we can communicate as families and finding really comfortable ways and encouraging ways that we can find times to sit together and actually discuss things.
Yeah. That's good. I guess one thing that you said to me earlier was that we can just start with, asking, what do you know or what have you heard? Because sometimes kids can forget to tell us about things that they've heard in the playground that are kind of shaping their view of things that are possibly inaccurate.
Yeah, and that's like many topics. Do you know what I mean? When our children are at school, they hear a whole range of different thoughts and ideas around topics. But when it's one that they know families are experiencing, or that it's sort of happening a little broader than just the school playground, it's really important we sort of sit with our kids and work with them to understand what they do know, and that we might have to bring a bit more accuracy to that.
Yeah, totally. That's good. I like that. And sticking to just very factual communication. Hey?
And also being aware of their age and their development. Like, for some children, especially younger ones, just knowing that, there's a germ going around at the moment, or there's a bug that some people are catching, but it's really important that if we look after ourselves and if we do the things we can do, like washing our hands, keeping the hygiene rules up, as well as listening to our teachers around what they're telling us to do, then that's us doing our part to look after ourselves whilst we're learning more and more about this all together.
Yes, it's really keeping it basic, hey?
Yeah, so don't jump in with what you think they know. Start off by getting them to tell you what they know, because sometimes even just you can put ideas in their mind as you're asking them questions.
Yeah.
So just let them speak, get out everything that what they think they know about the situation. Then you've got a starting point to jump off from.
Yeah.
All right, where do we go from there?
I think often what we might see is that children might express their feelings if they are on that side, going down this continuum from being a little bit distressed or a little bit anxious or worrying a bit more than usual, a little bit further. What can be really important is to talk to them about their feelings.
Yeah.
Also knowing that some might exhibit it through their behaviour.
So true.
You might see a difference in their behaviour, because a lot of children can't express in words what they're feeling. Some are great at it, some aren't. So just paying attention to what you might be noticing that could be a little bit different, but also noticing yourself how, if you've noticed yourself managing this a little bit differently, or you might have noticed yourself feeling a little bit cautious or a little bit more edgy than usual, and about how do you actually look after yourself, as well as being aware of how our children might also be feeling.
Yeah, totally. I know as a parent, you're kind of trying to keep up with what's going on around you and keep up with, continuing to work if you can at the moment. And and it feels a little bit more rushed than normal. Is there ways that we can just slow it all down in the household?
Oh, definitely. I think often, a lot of families are quite used to quite a rushed life. I think, however, with this as well, we can be coming in with all this sort of emotion or question or uncertainty ourselves, depending on what we've been told at work that day. So I think when we get home, one thing that can be really helpful is that we sort of switch off from screens and if that's possible in that moment, to actually have focus times as well as using routines. I mean, routines bring so much certainty for children, and that consistent approach just helps children tremendously. So the more we can bring things into a more of a routine at home, I think that could be really helpful too.
Yeah, that's good.
So, as a parent,
Yep.
I'm kind of decided to read the news, not watch the news.
Yes.
That's a good one.
And that's so then all the news you're reading, number one, sometimes is a bit more, it's less rushed when you're reading reports, instead of that instant breaking news cycle, which on our televisions is coming up again and again. So maybe talk a little bit about how we can, dealing with what we have to deal with and not letting the kids see our escalating anxiety.
Yeah. And I think as well, knowing that those sorts of, when TV show or when we see the news repeatedly, we're getting also the emotion of the people we're seeing on the TV, possibly the presenters as well, and that can affect how we respond. So it's so important that we're limiting exposure to other people's distress, plus these facts,
Our kids are looking to us.
our kids are looking to us. So the more we can really limit what they're seeing and that perspective, especially in relation to this topic at the moment, the more it actually helps us to come down a little bit, and also our children to stay more grounded, which is something we really want them to learn the skills for, and also know that home can be a place that it's just their regular place to be.
Yeah.
So the more of the regular routine, the more that we can just sort of have regular meals or regular bedtime, bath time, story time, homework time, whatever it might be, it's really important we maintain routines as much as we can.
Well, consistency in routines, which every routine has almost gone out the window in terms of a lot of our families.
Yeah, true.
But there's a few I can think of. For example, we're on the set of what we're doing our Hillsong Kids church services. And so we're telling our parents, hey, just every Sunday, watch the same service at the same service time. Just keep that. So all the kids know on Sunday at 11:30 or whatever, we're going to sit down and we're going to do this. That's a good one. But even though my kids learn instruments, so I'm keeping my son doing his
Why
piano
not get
practice.
ahead? I'm telling my kids, get ahead in piano.
Right.
make
Or
some
anything that
ground.
is regular in their lives, because even sport for us here in Australia is now kind of out of the question. So what are the other extracurricular activities? I bought one of my sons a little art online video tutorial about drawing. So he's working his way through that.
And like my daughter, for example, cross country was postponed. I'm hoping that it will still happen, but that was something that she's been working hard on for months. So we're trying to give her new things to look forward to. So it can be as simple as a movie night with the family, or pancakes for breakfast, stuff like that. Things to look forward to, even though things are changing.
So maybe disappointment and uncertainty, Bec.
Yeah.
Because kids are going to be disappointed that they're not going to get to do the cross country.
Oh, for sure. And even acknowledging that it's okay to be disappointed, I think that's really important, because that's a feeling and we want to acknowledge how they are feeling. But with that as well, it's just like what you guys were saying, finding alternatives, finding other things that they're also interested in and activities that they can do. If in the time, especially if we have to be based just at home, finding activities that are usual for them and enjoyable for
kids
them.
are going to thrive, because they can go on their tutorials and drawing and music practice
and possibly write out a list together, brainstorm together, but also even write out a bit of a routine. But this is when we get up, this is when we have brekkie,
even if it's just
this is
that
how we
day's
get ready.
routine.
Yeah.
Even if it's just that day, like, let's write out what we're going to do today, because that creates a sense of routine, even if you're not quite sure what tomorrow and the next day looks like. You can create that.
And also in the place of, when uncertainty is present, even together discuss what you know is certain. So what we do know is certain is that, we have breakfast every day, but we might have variety within that, or we can still talk to family on the phone or via screens. There's a lot of things that are actually still certain in our world. Often it can feel, because the uncertain is so present, we can sometimes take our eyes off all that is still certain.
Yeah.
And so, and a lot of that is like the family unit that you might be in. It could be the things in a child's bedroom that they still know. They still know their toothbrush is purple and
they can
their
still FaceTime
toothpaste is white.
grandma.
It depends on the children. They can choose what they're going to wear. Whatever it might be, there's certain things that still are certain.
Yeah.
They're things that are still certain.
So potentially don't let them wear pajamas all day.
Yes.
Actually
Yeah,
lay out
true.
the clothes the night before.
Yep.
Okay, great. That's a
Yeah.
good idea.
And still getting organised for that day.
I think even getting their eyes off their uncertainty and putting it on to others. So we got together in a little huddle, our kids, and we prayed before they went to their next thing the other day. And I just thought that praying for others can lift their eyes off the situation, get them focused on something else. I know there's going to be great cross equals love ideas about things that we could maybe put in our neighbours' letterbox that might be coming out, and different ways that we could look at to bless others, maybe getting some postage stamps so that we can write some cards to some loved ones. There's so many things that we can do if we get creative.
Right, but that's a good point. Thinking about where others are at, because no matter how bad we've got it, there's always somebody else who's got a different pressure and a different struggle, a greater struggle potentially. So, especially in church, we talked about that a lot. Is when you take your eyes off yourself and your own needs, it helps you deal with the present really, and helps get your mind off your own problems, I guess.
Yeah.
And sometimes as well, when we can sort of get a little caught up in distressed thinking, we're not always able to put a lot of logic to it. The more we can come back to the present by doing some relaxation activities or grounding activities, it allows us to sort of see what's in front of us a lot more practically.
Yeah. So what would be an example of that if we're feeling like the kids are a little bit detached from the here and now? How do we bring them back?
Yeah, look, there's a few different ways. I mean, sometimes we talk about things called grounding activities, and that's around how a child will sort of talk about 3 things they can see. We can practice it too. 3 things they can see, 3 things they can hear, 3 things they can touch, or possibly when they're having a drink or something to eat, what do they taste in their mouth, what do they notice, and it's just a way to get connected back to our senses, and then we're actually able to be in the here and now, or possibly some breathing or relaxation
So it could
activities.
be as easy as asking, are you cold, hot or warm right now? Just to cut through that moment,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Wow.
That's a really good tip. I think you could do that in your house,
Definitely.
or walk out into your balcony or your backyard. Do that activity wherever you are.
Yeah.
Even when they're in bed at night time, sometimes we talk about a rag doll and it's sort of like go all floppy like a rag doll, or uncooked spaghetti, cooked spaghetti, and they can sort of limber up a little bit.
Yeah, just relax.
Yeah, just relax. It's really the more they can. And I'd also say things like bedtime. That's really important, that's where you're focusing on the things you know. So if that's when you do prayers, stories, talking about what was good in the day, what are they looking forward to tomorrow, it sort of keeps their mind in a really pleasant place before they go off to sleep. And that's going to help with sleep as well.
Yeah.
What do we do with kids that are not bothered by this at all, and they think it's a great adventure and they love being at home?
Well, you know what? Get them, just encourage them to keep doing what they're doing.
But do they love that they're at home because they want to sit on a game all day? Is that why?
I think so. I mean, I'm just saying. Maybe there's some kids out there who love this as the greatest year of their life.
Yeah.
But,
Would you even? Well, is that even from that serious perspective? Would you? If there is a kid who's completely oblivious, do we leave them in that state?
Yeah, as long as we know that they're still engaging in those sort of hygiene behaviours and what we're being told to be a careful and responsible citizen, then I think, that's okay. Because we don't want them, if they are unwell, we want them to tell a parent rather than ignoring it because they just think everything else is great.
Yeah, wow.
Gotcha.
So we want those sorts of things because we want to keep them, we want to make sure they're being kept, safe as well as other people. So it's ensuring those sort of precautionary responsibilities are still in place.
Very good.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Amazing. That is fantastic advice. Thank you so much, Bec. Is there anything else we need to talk about, Jess?
Well, I wanted to draw attention to our Hillsong Kids app because all week kids can submit Ask Gods and we're committed to responding to them as a Hillsong Kids team. So it's a really safe way of doing it. You can jump on the app, go to chat with us, write and ask God. We will respond to them and we will pray for them at our Hillsong Kids services online. And that's a bit of routine that they would be used to, us praying in Hillsong Kids services. As well as that on the app, we are going to have a space for parent and child well-being, and we're going to put some helpful links up, probably a link to this as well, and just keep try and keep resourcing you. If there was 2 great websites, that they could go to,
Sure.
what would you recommend?
I think with the facts, and I think it's really important we sort of choose just 1 or 2 sources. The Australian Department of Health, the Australian Government's Department of Health site, they have all up-to-date information. It's the information coming directly from the government. It's factual. It's guiding us on the requirements or the new strategies the government might be putting in place. So that's great from an information perspective. I think from a looking after oneself and one's family, and it's very important, parents, that you're looking after yourselves too, is that there's the Raising Children government site, so it's raisingchildren.net.au, as well as there's a broad range of other resources out there which we'll put some links to. But I do think the Raising Children network, they actually have some fantastic resources just in general for families, and it's considered like an Australian parenting resource. So I think that could be fantastic.
So cool, Bec. And what if we as parents, we've got the kids around more, we're trying to maintain work, the house, it's getting messier because the kids are around more and they're not letting the energy out at cross country and all sorts of things. Like, what if we just feel our fuse getting a little shorter? What would you say to the parents out there that are feeling a little bit at their limit?
I would first of all say, well done for noticing. Because this is unprecedented times and we're not always sure how we're going to be during that because there's uncertainty for parents as well. So I think knowing who your support people are, for them to reach out, be it if it's someone in the home or someone external to the home, find ways to reach out. If you don't have anyone there, finding how to connect in either through kids or through pastoral care, through church, and also that there's other help services available, because it's actually really, really important that as parents we know that this could affect us too. And so making sure you're taking time to sort of, be kind to yourself. There's some great work at the moment around this idea of self-compassion, which is actually acknowledging we don't have to have it all together, and that some things are going to put pressures on us that we don't know how to respond, yet there's many ways we can find out now how to resource ourselves to respond better.
Very good. That's awesome.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Bec.
That's a pleasure.
Jess, thank you so much
No
for being here.
worries.
Thanks, Dave, for being here.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Dave.
everybody. So listen, jump on your iPhone, your Android phone, grab the Hillsong Kids app. We really appreciate that, especially if it's you come to our church and you're a part of what we do here. We thank you for the time, taking the time to watch this, and hopefully you've learned something that would help you. Even just one thing. Don't get overwhelmed by all the ideas. Even if you implement one thing from this, you've made a great step forward. We'll see you next time.